Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for attending my talk today. I am so excited to have the opportunity to be in Dillon for the first time, especially since it is National Agriculture Week, a work where we celebrate the nation's hard-working farmers and ranchers that drive this country forward, often on little sleep and a lot of coffee. Without agriculture, the last best place, as Montana is referred to, could still be the last developing place. According to the Montana State Library, by the end of the homesteading boom in 1920, over 150,000 Montanans were awarded land claims underneath the Homestead Act. And as of 2022, 54 Montanan families belong to the Centennial Farms and Ranches program as multi-generational land stewards. It is without a doubt that the blood, sweat, and tears of numerous generations of Montanans have made this state one of opportunity and prosperity. But I pose a significant question to the public. What defines a Montanan? For much of our history, Montanans have been defined by their ruggedness and determination to persevere in the face of hardship. While labor and agriculture continue to play a large part in the creation of Montana's heritage, the Montanan identity is far more complex than previously accredited. We know the preferred historical narratives, those that highlight great explorers or industrial tycoons, but what about the stories of those who have been silenced in favor of more acceptable histories? What about those who have been censored due to their occupation, their sex, or their ethnicity? Being from the beautiful Bitterroot Valley myself, I have long advocated for the cultivation of local histories and the development of inclusive heritage. However, I have followed quite the unconventional path. While conducting research for the Missoula Historic Preservation Office as an undergraduate history student, I quickly became aware of the fascinating stories of those that had walked the city streets before me, merchants and blue-collar workers alike. After some time, I began to realize that not everyone's story was being told. I was discovering incredible stories of African American soldiers and Chinese families, but their perspectives and local histories remained virtually non-existent. From that point forward, I vowed to bring to light the stories that were excluded most often, the stories of the lives of those who inhabited the region's diverse red light or restricted districts. Unfortunately, due to rampant illiteracy rates in these districts between 1865 and 1917, very few firsthand accounts of red light citizens exist. Instead, their stories have been pieced together through birth and death records, military service forms, property documents, and newspaper articles. In association with the Unseen Missoula Downtown Heritage Program, I have been fortunate enough to give these stories life in the public eye almost a century after many of the restricted residents were permanently laid to rest. Throughout the implementation of my historical tour, Cardinal Enterprises, countless red light stories have been unearthed. While many of these stories provide unique insights into how Western Montanans districts operated, several prove just how interconnected these marginalized communities were. Although a formal survey of the state's red light districts has yet to be conducted, perhaps an opportunity for future research, it is largely supported by the broader academic community that before the turn of the 20th century, almost every city in the state of Montana sustained a red light district at one point in time, whether it was comprised of a few working women or entire city blocks. As time wore on, immigrant neighborhoods and Black communities became integrated into these districts due to cultural ostracization, which was influenced by strict Victorian ideologies. Eventually, temporary railroad camps blossomed into urban centers, and the restricted communities became increasingly excluded. Despite reformist efforts to eradicate these districts, frontier economies steadily depended on the survival of its most marginalized residents due to their consistent financial contributions to civic coffers. Pay cyclically changed hands between single male laborers, working women, saloons, and local merchants, and typically in that order. Undeniably, many of Montanan's cities would have faded into the ever-changing landscape without the existence of red light citizens. Assuredly, those familiar with Montana history have heard the tales of copper tycoon Marcus Daly and his transformative journey from Irish pauper to Western smelting king. But how many are aware of the equally transformative lives of Clara and Henry Smith? Unlike Daly, the Smiths did not live in Gilded Age mansions, as Marcus did, but rather a two-story brick brothel on the corner of Pinckney and 3rd Street in downtown Hamilton, Montana. While Daly's Anaconda Copper Mining Company monopolized the city for its rich lumber capital, the Smiths sought Hamilton out in the name of autonomy and social liberation. Clara Smith, born Clara Sarah Goffigan, was born on Christmas Day, 1855 in Norfolk, Virginia, while her husband Henry, on the other hand, was born on February 15th, 1858 in Stevenson, Alabama. The mere existence of the Smiths' story ties Montana into the broader conversation of Americans generationally impacted by the transatlantic slave trade, as both Henry and Clara were born to families who were historically held in bondage. Roughly between 1890 and 1943, the Smiths fostered the growth of Hamilton's Black community from within their brothel, the Black Diamond. The Black Diamond, amongst the Smiths' other properties, provided the Bitterroot Valley's earliest African-American residents a safe place to lay their head at night, momentarily sheltered from the era's pressures of racial discrimination and social segregation. Henry's story is particularly crucial to Western Montana's heritage, as he served 11 years with the United States Army's 25th Infantry, a segregated unit of Buffalo soldiers. At this time, Henry is the only known Buffalo soldier to have inhabited the Bitterroot Valley. Serving between Texas, Minnesota, and Montana, Henry's regiment primarily aided in the mediation efforts between frontier settlers and indigenous tribes during the Indian Wars period, efforts that would garner national attention by the conclusion of the 1890s. Despite his role in the establishment of the Black perspective in the American West, Henry's story has yet to be mentioned in local history narratives. If Henry and Clara clearly provide historical significance to the region's heritage, then why are men like Marcus Daly solely remembered, while the Smiths have long had their voices squandered? In a simple answer, because of preference. 45 miles north of Hamilton, the city of Missoula is painted with the stories of its city founders, such as Christopher P. Higgins or A.B. Hammond. Missoula's heritage was capitalized by the history of the Missoula Mercantile and the Northern Pacific Railway. Until the last decade, there was virtually no mention of the city's historic Chinese population, a robust community of immigrant families who, for over 50 years, enriched Missoula's Front Street restricted district with traditional cuisine, cultural celebrations, and ceremonial funerary customs, which originated from a Joss temple located on the top floor of Madame Mary Glyme's Star Lodging House. Missoula's sustainment of a Joss temple has proved to be a rare presence outside other regional cities with substantially vaster Chinese populations, such as Butte or Helena. The Garden City's Chinese community boasted numerous restaurants, steam laundries, and at least one known mercantile, But by the advent of 1940, the bustling neighborhood seemingly never existed at all. Regrettably, the collective identities of Missoula's Chinese population will likely remain unknown due to 20th century racial erasure and ethnic bias. Recent research, however, has unveiled the remarkable legacy of Sam Tom and his family. After traveling to the United States, reportedly by sailboat for upwards of 7 months, Tom first arrived in San Francisco by 1862 from his home in Guangdong, China. By 1870, Sam had settled in Montana, traveling by a series of overland stagecoaches and ox teams. Local newspapers reported that Sam had worked numerous mining camps throughout western Montana by the conclusion of the 1880s, including those in the rich mining districts near Alder Gulch, Butte, and Virginia City. Missoulians not only knew Sam as one of the city's oldest residents, but also a successful miner, a mercantilist, restaurant proprietor, and truck gardener. By the end of his life, Tom, his wife Sue Yi, and their 13 children had bridged the divide between life in Missoula's restricted district and the prosperity available only to Montanans' metropolitan society. 2 years after his death in 1935, Sam's descendants were recognized for their father's role in the creation of Montana's history with membership to the Sons and Daughters of Montana Pioneers Society. To this day, Sam's family is the only family of Asian descent that has been awarded membership. By 1940, Sue Yi and her 11 surviving children had become the only Chinese family left in Missoula, a silent finale to a once prosperous populace. Like the Smiths, the Toms have yet to be given permanent recognition in local history. Denial of Montana's most collective history does not craft a realistic picture of the last best place, but rather an unfinished work of art with bleeding cultural wounds, an unfinished work poised with the potential for greatness. By embracing lost Montanans of all walks of life, we are strengthening our communal bonds as well as our investment in identity-driven heritage for numerous generations to come. Changing the narratives provides the opportunity to tell the stories of those who never had the opportunity to have their voices heard. Changing our narrative now provides the foundations for a diverse Montana tomorrow. A Montana that truly represents all marginalized communities, communities who are still fighting for their own voices to be heard. Changing our heritage to reflect the experience of all Montanans embraces the raw stories of resilience, freedom, and pursuit of happiness that the state prides itself on. We are proud to be Montanans, so together, let us be proud of all Montanans, those that have weathered her winters and fought her forest fires long before it was our turn. Together, we can change our heritage to create an inclusive tomorrow for those who have yet to take their place in history. Together, we can finish our work of art, one brick at a time, 1 acre at a time, one story at a time. Thank you.